So paper 2, in question 1, again, you'll have around 30 marks. And then level 1 questions from measurements and maps and plans. It might also be level 2 questions, the difficulty, right? So they're not going to be too difficult. There, they are going to ask you to find perimeter, like the Eastern Cape question paper had in the beginning. I think they were asked to define perimeter. And you know, the questions were so nice in the Eastern Cape question paper. It was so nice. Let me check. Yes, they were asked to define perimeter, which was awesome. 40 marks. Total distance around a particular shape. So the shapes are set will be different. So total difference. If you are actually given a shape, like let's say you give you a rectangle, and then they give you all the information, there's a rectangle, and then before they ask the rest of the questions on the rectangle, they say, what is a perimeter? You can say it's a total distance around the perimeter, because you are answering around it's a total distance around the schoolyard, on the edge of the school, surrounding the edge of the schoolyard, right? So when you go around the edge of the schoolyard, you will find that. So let's say if that was, then you're answering in context. If like, okay, I'm rambling. And then you have question 2, which would be maps and plans. So on question 2, there will be maps and plans. Question 3, measurements. So that's the expectation you should have, that I know that if I go to question 2, I'm going to answer maps and plans. If I'm going to question 3, I'm going to answer measurements. And then question 4 and 5, then that's when they start to mix the topics, right? So make sure you read and start with your specialty. If your specialty is maps and plans, question 2 will be the best question to start with. And then you go and look at the integrated questions, question 4 and 5. Which one has a lot of marks on maps and plans? And then you answer that. And then you do your measurement, knowing that you've already finished your specialty. Okay, so again, remember, probability will be examined anyway. So page 6, on page 6, now they will say difficulty. So what's the difference like with level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4 questions? On level 1 questions is they check what do you know. So this is stuff that you can memorize, like what is perimeter. So that stuff you can memorize, total distance around a shape. And then on level 2, they ask you, it's like an application question, but it's not difficult. It's like an application question on something they know you know, right? So that's what they do. And then on level 3, now they'll expect you to apply your knowledge. So it's an application question, but now the answers are going to be longer, right? And then on level 4 is where now you're even going to be asked to compare your answers. Like you might have to do 2 answers and then compare the answers and maybe say, is the statement valid or not valid? You see, those are level 4 questions. So the question paper distributes. So what they do in the question paper, they distribute. They they try and make sure that all the topics have like around 20 to 30%, right? Okay. Now, on page 7. So on page 7, here's what you're going to find on page 7 of the examination guideline. Percentages of marks to be allocated to the different assessment. So now that you know, like it might be like 30 to 35% on level 1 questions. So those are the nice questions. We're like, what is perimeter, total distance around the shape? So you're going to get a lot of those are going to be around 30%. So they just wanted to make sure that the question doesn't only have difficult questions, right? But it also doesn't have only, everything is distributed nicely. On page 8, the section says, okay, financial documents and tariff systems, right? So these are the things that are going to be asked on the exams. You must know the names of the financial documents. So sometimes they'll write the name of the financial document on the document, and then they'll ask you, what type of a financial document is this? And all you have to do is go and read. So that is a level 1 question. It's the questions that where you just read from the electricity bill and show how the total due on the electricity bill has been calculated. Again, those are level 1 questions. Show how the VAT value listed can and the electricity bill has been calculated when told that VAT is 15% of the value, excluding VAT, right? So that is calculating a direct percentage of an amount. So now level 1 question will be calculate VAT, and they'll tell you VAT is 15%, and they'll just give you a question, an amount that doesn't have VAT, and then you have to add the VAT, right? So like, or you have to calculate the VAT. So for level 2 questions now, you're going to use a formula, and you show how the amount is charged for electricity, and then consumption shown can the bill has been determined. So you have to complete a table of values to show the cost of various quantities of electricity consumption, right? So the table will be there, but it won't be complete, so you will have to complete the table. Use a table of values to construct a graph to represent the cost of electricity consumption. So it doesn't have to be electricity, guys. It can be something else. It can be transport. So make sure that you know that. Increasing or decreasing by a given percentage. Now they'll say, an item at the shop, right, has a discount of 20%. And then you have to decrease that and say how much after the discount is taken away. And then you have to decrease that with the percentage, right? Or you increase it with the percentage. Now, the very important rule to remember there is that percentage is not money. So if you're increasing 110 rands with percentage, make sure that first you know how much is the 20% you're increasing with. Or if you're decreasing with 20%, know how much the 20% is first, right? Or you can just say 100 minus 20. I think I will do some of those questions just without the question papers. Level 3 questions now will be replacing the calculation values shown on the bill for a different electricity consumption value, right? So now they don't give you too much. You have to do the hard work. And then without any scaffolding or guide quantities, draw a graph to represent the cost of electricity on a particular electricity system. Now here, they will just let you do the calculations and then go and draw a graph. And then level 4 is reasoning. So here you choose the appropriate strategy. You decide which graph is appropriate, right? So, and then analyze a newspaper article describing proposed increases in electricity tariffs and make deductions, right? So you are going to analyze the information. If you're doing calculations, different calculations, you're calculating the electricity that SIPO used in Cape Town, and if you use the same electricity in Johannesburg, how much will it be? You have to do both costs and then compare them and say, oh, he's gonna pay more in Johannesburg than in Cape Town, so maybe it's better to live in Cape Town. You know what I mean? Okay, so you can go ahead and read all of that. One of the most important things, guys, for finance, data handling, is the numbers. But then if you know them for numbers, then when you get to like volumes, because sometimes you have to calculate the volumes of a dam, and they'll be like, the dam is 1.2 million cubic meters a volume. And then you're like, 1.2 million. And then they say, write the number in full. Can you write the number in full? So that would be page 8, page 9, page 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and page 15. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to go through that. I'm going to do a separate video. I just went for that, but if you can read it on your own, I will post it up and you can pause, or I will put it on I should put it on the Facebook page. It's easier to put pictures there on the Facebook page. Anyway, and then I'll put the link. So on page 16, we are given context. So on page 16, some familiar topics for question 1, 2, and 3. So here's are some of the familiar topics: financial documents and tariff documents, right? So when you get tariff documents, you might get a document for electricity, maybe a document for meter, meter, where electricity is postpaid electricity, where they use a meter, postpaid water, where they use a meter. So that one. And what I love about this is it tells you where the documents are going to come from. Household bills, shopping documents like a receipt, banking documents like a bank statement, or a loan statement, house budgets, household budgets. What do you know? What is a budget? Do you know the definition of the budget? Because that could be asked in question 1. They can also ask it in a question where there's finance. They can ask that as maybe 2.1.1 before they continue. Income and expenditure, profit and loss, income and expenditure statements and budgets. You must know that. For income and expenditure for a small business. So when you're doing a business, you budget for the business, you record your income, you record your expenditure, you can determine your profit and your loss, or your loss because, or did you break even, or maybe you broke it even. In order to understand that, you need to know your income and your expenses, and then you can compare. Did you spend what you were budgeted for, or did you spend more? Okay, so another thing is yeah, don't forget the definition of the budget, but also, do you know what is an income and expenditure statement? Do you know what profit is? Do you know what loss is? Do you know what break even? What the break even means? Do not say break even is a point on the graph where they meet. No, that is not the definition of the break even. Now you are directing the person to where they can find the break even on the graph. Okay, so another thing is cost price and selling price. Small business, baking, bread, tuck shop, street vendor, flea market stall, cell phone, container, garden services. It can be any of those small little things, but they will ask you the cost price and the selling price. And remember, there's something called a markup, right? So when you buy, as a business, you buy or make products, right? You buy and make certain products, or you don't make products, you just buy them and resell them, right? But if you make a dress, you have to buy the material, you've got your cotton, you've got your machine that you're using, you might be even renting somewhere, a stall. So that's, my lights just went off. The interest, bank loans, and investment. So now there's 2 types of interest. There's interest, right? And the interest, either you're paying the interest or you're getting the interest. So when you're getting the interest, it means that you have invested money somewhere and that money is making extra money. But when you are paying interest, it means you borrowed or you took something on credit, and now you have to end up paying the interest. So interest on loan would be if you borrowed money and now you'll have to pay back the money, but you also have to pay back with interest. Inflation. And then we have inflation. Definition for inflation, that was going to be asked in question 1. Or even the definition of a break-even, right? The definition for interest, the definition for an investment, a loan. They can ask anything they want. So what is inflation? The general increase in prices of goods and services. That's what economics learners say. The general increase of prices and goods. The general increase of prices and goods and services. Okay, I'm not saying that's incorrect. I'm just saying it's not good enough for maths literacy. In maths literacy, you have to be very specific, and you have to show that you understand that this increase happens over time, right? So it is the general increase of prices in goods, but what kind of goods? So you look at the question. Let's say this is asked in the finance question, and they talked about houses, and then they would say, what is inflation? As one of the questions here. So this will be a general increase in the prices of houses over time, right? Make sure you are being in context. Don't wait until they ask you to be in context. Just teach yourself early to answer the questions in context. Okay, so we have taxation. So the taxation that we do here is VAT and personal income tax. So also we also include insurance, unemployment insurance fund. Yes, so that also. So now remember, these are acronyms. SARS, pay as you earn, which is PAYE, pay as you earn, SARS, South African Revenue Services. We have VAT, which is value added tax. We have UIF, which is unemployment insurance fund. We have yeah, and don't forget provident fund and pension fund. GEPF, government employment pension fund, government employees in pension fund. Don't forget that. Exchange rates. Now the exchange rates, guys, I also struggle sometimes with the exchange rates. That's why you need to cool and calm down when you're doing. On your exchange rate, you might be asked questions like, it might be included in questions like investment, where they say, oh, you're moving and then you're going to invest your money that side, or you're going to invest your money and then it's going to have interest and then you're going to convert. Please be careful when you're supposed to convert, okay? You guys, when you're given on a table, I think it's because maybe we don't use tables a lot. When you're given on a table and then you're given maybe 2 rates and it says $1 is 16 rands. And then it says there, it writes there, rands, and then you write this in dollars. It's the same thing. It's just that now it's 1 rand in dollars. Y'all get very, very confused and don't know what to do, right? This is why I use cross multiplication. So no matter if they give me 1 rand in dollars or $1 in rands, doesn't matter as long as I cross multiply correctly. So measurements. Conversions, guys, practice conversions. Question 1 of paper 2, drill, 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 drill. So that conversion marks, you have them. For conversions, you're going to convert in question 1, and then you're going to convert, guaranteed, I guarantee you, you're going to convert on the measurement questions as well. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you that. So drill, drill, drill. And then we have measurements of length, weight, volume, and temperature. Read your annexures correctly. Read your pictures correctly. Have a step. I have a method that I use. I have a sequence that I use. When I see my picture on the measurements topics, when I see my picture, I look for certain things first. Before I read all the details, I look for my scale. I go to my scale and I write there on the scale what type of scale it is, because I know they might ask me what type of scale it is. And then after writing the name of the scale, I say, what does the scale say? So if it's a ratio scale, I can just read it without worrying about anything else. So I say 1 centimeter on the map or 1 millimeter on the map represents this much, right? And then once I've written the scale, the type of the scale, I then write it in full in words, as if I turn it into like a word scale. 1 centimeter on the map represents 200 centimeters on the ground. Because I prefer using cross multiplication, I'm not very good at trying to remember how I divide when this, I multiply when this. I'm not very good at remembering those things, so I use cross multiplication. So what I do is, after writing it in my word scale on the document as I'm reading it, what I do is I then write, how am I going to use this when I'm calculating? Okay, I'm going to write 1 centimeter is equal to 200 centimeters. And stay. See, it's like I'm revising before answering the questions. And then if it's a bar scale, immediately when I look at my map or my plan and I say, I look for my scale and it's there, or it has a scale. And then I'm like, hey, what type of scale are you? And it's like, oh, it's a bar scale. Then I write the bar scale and then I take my ruler. I don't wait until they ask me to use the scale. I take my ruler, I measure it. I don't have to measure the whole thing. I measure where I feel like I'm comfortable. I can use it. So I measure it and then I say wherever I ended up measuring, maybe it might say 1 centimeter is maybe 200 kilometers, right? So I'll be like, okay, I write it down in words, right? But before I continue, because the bar scale will say 1 centimeter on the map represents 200 kilometers, for example, right? So what I will do is I will then just turn it into a ratio scale by converting the measurement on the right and making it the same as the measurement on the left, and then making sure it's a unit by dividing. And this, in this case, it's 1, so it's going to be 1/1. But if it was 2, I'll be like 2 divided by 2, and I divide 2 by this side. I'm going to do these little videos that do all of this. And then we have, so that's the thing. First thing I do. Next, I look for my north. I don't have to do them in the sequence that I'm saying them, but I look for my north. Which way is north facing? Is north facing that way? Is north facing that way? Is north facing that way? That way I already know before I go to my questions. If north is facing this side, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my paper around. Let's say this is my paper and north is facing that way. So what I'm going, let's say this is my paper and then north is facing that direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my paper, and when I'm answering the question paper, I'm going to use north in this way, right? So I'm going to say, oh, there's north, and then there's south, there's west, there's east. That way I know, okay, if I want to know where is this camera from this corner here, it is south east, right? Because I've made north in the direction that I know. You turn your page, not north, you turn your page. So this is the page, and then north is facing that way. You turn your page around, and then you use it the way you used to it, right? Okay, so another thing after that is I look for my keys. So now my keys are going to be somewhere. If they're there, they're going to tell me what this is, what that there is, what that there is. I'm like, yes, good, I've got keys. And then I look for dimensions. See, 4 things. It takes you a few seconds to do this on the question paper, but if you don't do these things, it can impact your marks. Okay, so what you do is you what was I talking about? After the keys, you look for your dimensions. Wherever you see, for example, plans tend to have like maybe somewhere where you study the measurements. Oh, this length is this size, this length. Oh, they didn't give me the length this side. So you say, oh, if this one is 5 centimeters, then this one is 5 centimeters. This one is 3 centimeters, then this one is 3 centimeters. Then maybe they might give you a measurement there, or they might give you a measurement here, and then it ends there, but they don't write it there. So you're like, oh, this one is that one. Or maybe to get the measurement there, you have to add this part, and then you get the total measurement there. So you do all of those things as you're studying. Where your bedroom is, where your curtain is, you look, oh, the bathroom is there, there's a door, there's windows, and then you go to the questions. Because when they ask you, calculate the number of tiles there, and then you just go take everything. Now you're confused. Now you're stressed. Because you didn't give yourself time to study the diagram. Or you didn't study the diagram correctly. Okay, so that is net scales and so on and so forth. So make sure you understand time, how to read time, how to add time, how to minus time. So with time, there's a few things that you need to know when it comes to time. With time, there's a starting time, there's the duration, and there's the finishing time. The only thing the formula speed is equal to distance divided by time can give you is the duration of the car driving on the road. That's the only thing it can give you. It will not tell you how many minutes they stopped. You're going to have to figure that one out, or you read it from the information. So if I want to know how long did it take for the car to get from point A to point B, that is if I use the speed formula, it is only going to give me from only the times the car was moving. When the car is not moving, it won't give me that because it's not part of the car, right? Okay, so make sure you pay attention to that. Also, if they say the duration of the car traveling from this day is 1 hour and 15 minutes, don't go there and substitute 1 hour, 0.15. 1 hour and 15 minutes is not 1.15 hours. 15 minutes needs to be converted on its own. And then we have data handling, classifying data. Go back to the notes on data handling. How do we classify data? How do we collect data? Right? Make sure you know the steps of collecting data, summarizing data, representing data in graphs, tables, and all of that stuff. You need to be familiar with those things. And then probability. One of the most important things to know in probability is the formula. Know the formula. Know where the top part of the formula comes from. Know where the bottom part from the formula comes from. You must know the tree diagram. You must know how to finish the tree diagram, how to combine the combinations so that you can finish the tree diagram, how to read the tree diagram. If you don't know how to read the tree diagram, you won't be able to answer the questions. What else? I think that's it. This is very long. And that, my darling, is me summarizing examination guidelines. So in the next video, we are going to look at what the markers from last year said were the mistakes that learners made last year, so that you don't make the same mistake, right? Bye.